Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the writing podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I'm Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is my co host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
And today we are speaking with author Jessica Lunt. We are so delighted to welcome her, and she is an indie author. We've been begging indie authors to come and join us, and we are so happy that she is going to talk a little bit about her writing journey, indie publishing, and also her debut novella, The Witch Hunter's Wife, which was released on September 30th. And it is fantastic. I have read it cover to cover, and it is available on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, Barnes& and Noble, Kobo, I'm sure other places. And she's got another novella that's coming up soon for release. She is super busy, and that is why we are so happy she's made some time to join us. Hi. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, but also, your background as a writer too.
Um, yeah, this is where I always mess up. I'm just gonna go blank now.
Don't worry.
About me, so I'm a mom, 4 kids. I got 4 young kids at home, and in my spare time, I write. I try to stick to historical fiction, but it's drifted, into, like, historical women's fiction, historical romance, historical mystery, like, we're just going all over right now. So I've been trying to hone in on it. But history, it always comes back to history.
Have you always considered yourself a writer, or is it something in sort of relatively recent times?
Kind of, yeah. As a kid, I loved writing, and I was always handed books, like, everybody in my life was like, "Here, read this." All the adults in my life. And and so then I don't know who it was, but one of them was, they told me, they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is a person who wrote this, and, like, you could write your own story." And so that was always in my brain. That was like, "I could be a writer. I could be a writer." But it wasn't until recently that I was really, like, sat down. I was like, "Actually, yeah, I can be a writer, so I'm gonna sit down and
Yeah,
do it."
yeah.
Very
And
cool.
and I so Megan's read your book. I'm a third of the way through it, and it's so good. It's written really well. It's got
Thank you.
great beats. I mean, it just yeah, it's so good. Uh, what how did you prepare for that writing? Like once you decided, okay, I'm gonna sit down and write something. Like, were you out there reading all the craft books or watching videos, or like what did that look like?
For a long time, I just wrote short stories, and I was always trying to write a book, and you could never couldn't hack it, I couldn't get to the end. I could get about, like, a quarter or halfway,
Mhm.
and then I'd have to go start a new project, but I could always pump out short stories. So I was writing short stories after short stories. I would enter them to contests, like, I won a few of them, and then I got into, like, 20s, and, I got married, I started having kids, and the writing train just crashed, so I wasn't doing anything for a good almost 8 years. I wasn't writing,
Yeah.
and it was a few years I kept trying to jumpstart it as I was going, and finally one year, it was before NaNoWriMo
Mhm.
died. I was like, "Well, this" my husband was like, "Okay, I know you really wanna do this." We wanted to do Nano one year. I wanted to actually finish. I wanted to get the full 50,000 words. He's like, "Okay, this year, we're gonna do it." I was like, "Okay." And so he he, like, almost forced me to sit down, button chair. "You're gonna type." And I pumped out, and and I did it. I was able to he took care of, like, all the meals, basically. I was
Wow.
non-existent for the whole month, like, did all the kids' stuff for school, and otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm gonna tell Shane that that's what he needs to do for me, that he's just gonna be like, "Lady, I'm gonna take it all over."
yes, please do.
So, I read your bio, and it said that you grew up reading Robin McKinley and Philip Pullman and
Mhm.
Yeah,
Tolkien. So, obviously,
lots of fantasy,
a
yep.
lot of fantasy, but now it's historical. Like, when did that shift start? Did you ever write fantasy, I think is what I wanna start with saying.
I tried writing fantasy when I was younger, because
Mhm.
I thought what I thought I was gonna write because I loved reading it, but I always really liked the idea of what if the fantasy was real, and how would it work historically? How would this fairy tale work historically, and how could we fit it in? So or how could we fit in, like, unicorns in our actual with the animals, like, how can they fit in our ecosystem, and how could they actually be anatomically correct, and things like that. And and then I got going, then I started I don't I don't know who it was, but, someone was like, "Oh, there's actually" I discovered historical fiction after, like, segued into that. And I realized I was like, for me, historical fiction is really close to fantasy because both of them are very world-based writings, and a lot of it is about the setting and where you're at, and
Yeah.
historical just happens to actually be real, and fantasy is something that we made up.
You don't have to do the world building per se, you just have to
But I
kinda
still have
discover
to
the world
Yeah, I
building.
still have to find the world because
Yeah.
it's the world we lived in, but it doesn't exist anymore. You have to go backwards and figure out way people thought and what infrastructures they had and what, technology they had and things like that.
So, how do you do your research? The Witch Hunter's Wife, is takes place in, 1690 something,
Six
I think, is that yeah. So, did did you do you have any kinda, like, background in this, or, did you have to do a lot of research, or
I
how did
had to
that
do
work?
a lot of research, yeah. I don't normally dabble in those time that time frame. I don't have a historical degree or anything like that. I'm not a historian. So, I don't have any of that background, but usually I'm really good at diving down rabbit holes though,
Uh-huh.
and I can find something and just really dig into it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times though, it would take a year and history never happens in isolation. And so, when you take a year, a lot of times I'll look at, okay, what was happening 50 years leading up to this, and what happened 50 years after this, because the
Mhm.
way people think, this isolated event was influenced by the way people thought before, and then it also changed the way people thought afterwards. And you can see the ripples of it in both time spans. And a lot of times you can see the ripples of it throughout different locations at the same time too. And so so even though like this story takes place in 1692 Massachusetts Bay Colony, you can look at, okay, well, what else was going on in the world in 1692? What was going on in Europe? Nowadays, we can even look at sometimes what was going on in like South America and what was going on in Australia and things like that because we have a lot of history that's available to us. And sometimes there's some really cool connections you can make and like, oh, this was a general thought of the whole world. Or you can be like, oh, this was a very isolated thought that started here and then grew out later.
Yeah. Were you spending a lot of time at, like, the library, or, what are your research tools?
I try to use the library. I am in a kind of an isolated area right now, so the Interloan Library requests are my some of my best friends.
Yeah.
I do a lot of my family's really into genealogy, and so I know how to dive into genealogical records, which is really helpful because that's where you get a lot of firsthand accounts, which is the best information, best type of
Yeah,
research you can find is firsthand accounts.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
so
yeah.
I'm able to dive through and read journals and, like, look at, okay, these are in the cemeteries, and we can find records, birth records, marriage records, all that stuff like that, and you can piece stuff together.
Did you do any, site visits at all as part of your
No,
research?
I would have loved to do site visits for this. I'm gonna be in Salem, or at least near enough to Salem that I wanna try and go, in March, so I'm
Yeah,
hoping to go over there.
yeah.
This one
Before
I
we
had
s
to do Yeah,
no,
so this
please
one I
go.
had to do all virtually.
Yeah. But before we started, I was talking about how I'm from New England, and this is a world that I'm from Southern New England specifically. I'm from Connecticut, so not Massachusetts. It's like
Yeah.
the dowdy little sister kind of. But we're certainly dragged up to Massachusetts as school children all the time to go to these kind of living history spaces like Sturbridge Village, old Sturbridge
Yeah.
Village. I can still smell old Sturbridge Village in my head when I think about it a little bit. So this is such a fascinating area to me, and it's kind of shoved on us like this is your heritage, this is your heritage. And to see that somebody who hasn't been in this and raised in this can capture it so effectively that I felt in it. I mean, I have to say thank you because it felt like the history that we'd been taught as kids, on a page
Thank
in a
you,
very
yeah.
engaging way. So thank you.
I haven't been there specifically, but so, we're a military family, and so we move around a lot, and we have lived in upstate New York. We have lived in North Carolina and, like, Virginia near the coast. So I've been East Coast-ish in that area, but not directly in the area. So a lot of it is, like, recognizing patterns and, like, well, this is what it was like here, so extrapolate from there and all
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff. So you're just a lot of times, though, you're just hoping you get it right.
No, you
Well,
got it.
and I
You got
think
it.
you did. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say your world feels very lived in, which is, probably the highest compliment you can give a historical fiction writer
Yeah.
is, it feels like you're almost narrating the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about the witch hunter's wife, and do you have like a pitch or like a little condensed tagline kind of
I am
thing to give us?
awful at pitches since I'm not that much better at it, so what the tagline I do have for it was just kind of I threw it up there and I was like, "We're just gonna go with it, and maybe we will change it later down the line, but we haven't yet." So but yeah, I just have it written down a little bit, so I don't even have to think about it now. But so the book is about this woman who she has to choose between supporting her witch hunting husband or standing against him, as he's accusing their neighbors and their friends of witchcraft. And that's pretty much it. That's where I started with was that basic idea.
The way that you approach it is not from being amongst the accused, which so often we see these stories coming from the viewpoints of the accused or the accused families, but instead from the accuser and
Yeah.
accuser's family. How did you come up with this idea? I read your afterwards, so I
Okay,
have a
so
little
you
bit of
know
an
the
idea.
answer a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually had a friend who came back she had visited the area, and they came back, and we were over at their house, and we were chatting, and I had another friend there too, so we were all chatting about this, and they both started talking about how they were direct descendants of Rebecca Nurse, who was one of the accused, and she was executed for witchcraft. And they just got going on it and, they got really going into it, and she was talking about all the things that were there, and I just sat back there and I was like, "Wait a second, because like I said, like, my family's really big into genealogy, and I was like, "I know we have family ties to that area," and my family's also part of the thing, like, if we have something pretty cool like that, like, "Oh, yeah, we're the such and such of these people who got accused for witchcraft," like, I would have grown up knowing this was like, "So why haven't I heard any stories about this?" And so then I got thinking about it. I was like, "I wonder if I haven't heard about it because we weren't being accused, but because we were the ones accusing people." And that's something you don't wanna really
Oh,
talk about.
you
Yeah.
were the baddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did look it up, and I did find it that yeah, like, you can go in and you can look through, like, who you're related to and everything, and it was like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, you're, like, the 3rd cousin so many times removed of this person and that person." And everything, and I was like, "Well, that's not exactly what I wanted." But there was one person, Samuel Martin, who I'm a direct descendant of him,
Wow.
and he was one of the primary accusers of, it was Mary Eyre Parker, who and she was executed for witchcraft. I have written down on September 22nd of 1692, and he later recanted his, like, I guess he didn't really recant his accusation of her, but he later signed and this is a spoiler, I guess, a little bit for the book, but he signs a petition that gets sent up to the courts that the city of Andover put together, and they said, "We need to stop these. This isn't right. We're gonna stand with these accused, and they need to be let out on bail and not have to stay in these jails," and all this stuff. So, he went back to it later, but
It's I'm putting my lawyer hat on here for a moment. It's a very interesting kind of area and it
yeah.
or area and era of the law.
That would get
It
you accused of witchcraft, Megan,
Yeah,
back in
probably. I know, yeah,
1692.
a
Yeah.
lady practicing law, kind of thing. But that this was really the witch trials were this impetus for changing the legal system in the Massachusetts Bay Colony and changing it from this kind of like
Yeah, they were.
whoopsie daisy kind of thing
Yeah.
to having something that is very much more like what it is today.
The trial started in 1692, but they went into 1693 as well, and they had to reconvene with a new court. And the new court they reconvened with in 1693 is actually the same court that they still use today. I don't know how much of it has changed, but it's the same court. It's the same basic structure.
My understanding is that there was some level of embarrassment as well over in England about like what are these randos doing?
Yeah, right?
It is
What are these
like
stupid Americans doing?
what are these stupid
I mean,
Americans
we
doing?
weren't Americans yet, but they
No,
still
no. What are these colonists doing? Like we gave them this, robust common law system that is functional. And yeah, we do some weird stuff with it. And yeah, up in Scotland, there are some witch things happening. Ooh, ooh,
yeah,
whoops.
we won't talk
But
about
like,
that, but
we don't talk about it. Like, what's going on over there? And that's something that your book made me think about. Like, oh, this is something I kind of want to tug on. Like, what were people over in England thinking about at this time? Because that change in Massachusetts had a ripple effect in the rest of the colonies too. Like, we're not doing it. Connecticut was terrible for stringing up witches.
yeah.
It's so, hats off to
Yeah,
Massachusetts. I hate saying
it
it,
wasn't
but
an isolated event either. Like, everyone talks about the Salem witch trials, but
yeah.
they were rounding up witches all around
Oh,
the colonies, but it just happened to be that they had this extreme number that they had in Salem.
and one of the things from my recollection is that they documented everything so well.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
so
get the
Which must have
chance
been helpful for your book.
yeah.
oh, it was so good. If you get the chance and if you're able to stomach it, you can go read the trial transcripts, um, that 'cause Samuel Paris, I think it's been a while since I've written this, so I hope I got his name right. Um, he really went to town, and he wrote down, like, every little thing, every little objection they made, every little comment made in the courts and stuff, and some of the transcripts, you can tell someone else wrote them, and they just kinda made a summary about it, but they still got a good amount in there, and so that was so good to read.
It's amazing, that you have such a wonderfully deep and extensive well to kind of, dive into when you're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so, you've written short stories, you said before as well. These were also historical, or were they in other genres?
Lately, they've been historical. I started a newsletter and I've been writing short stories for the newsletter. So people who subscribe to the newsletter, they get these free short stories. And I've been sticking to historical stuff for that. Before, I mean, I know I had some fantasy ones. I think I had some contemporary ones, just kind of all over the place. So we would if when we were living in New York, I wrote a couple that were, like, based up there in New York. I wrote some that were based just about wherever we were living at the time, like in Korea when we were over there, and North Carolina, Colorado, all that.
So, why were you drawn to doing a novella over making it, like, into a novel length? By the way, I think it's perfect as a novella, but, what drew you to that format?
Honestly, a 2-hour movie is 120 pages for a script, so which is about novella length. And so that's my thinking on it is the plan is to do a series of novellas, just to try and get I was gonna try and get 4, so I'm only about halfway through, and just maybe try to keep going if I can to get more content out and see if we can attract and then maybe one of those will get picked up, hopefully, someday. They're a lot easier to what do you call that? Remake into movies and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because when you got a novel, it's so long, and a lot of times they've gotta cut a lot of things
Oh, yeah.
from the
Yeah,
story, but
yeah,
a novella right around that page length is the sweet spot. But
yeah.
also, it was I'd done the short stories, I'd figured out how to do the novel, and then it was like, "Well, now I wanna try and go back and see." I was trying to challenge myself. "Okay, can I do it? Can I get a story in 10,000 words, and I did it, and it's like, "Okay, can I get a story in 20,000 words?" And I did it. I was like, and this last next one that's coming up, "Can I get a story in 30,000 words?" And I did that. So just trying to challenge myself to stretch the muscles, strengthen them
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah,
So it sounds like then maybe because one of the questions I was going to ask is you're an indie author, and so everybody's got kind of their different paths to publishing. So I was going to ask, what drove you to indie? It sounds like maybe your predilection towards novellas might have been one major factor in going the indie direction because it's pretty hard in trad pub to
Yeah,
pitch
they
a novella.
yeah, they don't really want novellas,
Yeah.
which is I think they might eventually move back to novellas because when you look at a lot of the classics, Ray Bradbury and,
Hmm.
Fitzgerald and all those Animal Farm, I mean, and this,
yeah,
1984 I think 1984 might be a bit bigger, but a lot of those classic novels that they make you read in school and everything, if you go look at the page count of those are novellas. That's what they used to publish, like, and that's what made men, like, that's what they used to do, and we've slowly gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and, now we've got, like 800-page books that we're doing that everyone
yeah.
wants to read, but the cost of publishing is going up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they switch back to novellas in the future.
That's something we've discussed a couple of times. Well, first of all, it's so hard to get a long book as a debut author, but at the same
Yeah,
time, a short book is also an
it's also a
impediment,
no-no.
so
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you've got these guardrails, like, this genre must be X number of words, and this genre must be other, Y number of words, and you're in these very tight corrals,
Yeah.
and I can see how indie publishing allows you to be a lot truer to your own voice,
yeah,
but also
and
truer to your vision.
yeah, and I'm a big believer in that if the story only needs to be 20,000 words, don't make it 30,000 words. You're gonna put in you're just gonna get a lot of fluff and it's not gonna be a good story anymore. And
Sure.
so, but yeah, it was going that, like, knowing that I was like, well, if I'm gonna make a novella, it's not gonna work in the trad world. So if I want to see it anywhere, I'm gonna have to publish it myself.
I I wanna talk a little bit more specifically about the book, kind of in the parameters that you wanna talk about the book, so we're not spoilery.
No
So
spoilers, Megan.
no
I'm only a
spoilers,
third of
no
the way through.
spoilers, no spoilers, no spoilers,
I'll
but
try.
I'll try to be very good.
You know what, though? I actually have the memory of a goldfish, so if you
This
spoil
is
something, I'm gonna
absolutely
forget it, but
true.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's telling the truth here. So, the book focuses on a marriage
Yes.
and how this marriage, without giving too much away, how this marriage is affected by this trauma. This
Yeah.
The trauma of an area is brought into a marriage. Why did you choose to have a marriage as a jumping off point, and sort of the foundation for this work? I
So
say this as somebody who writes about relationships
tips,
almost
yeah.
exclusively, so I'm very
I
interested
mean,
in this.
the answer is kinda twofold. So one is, it's you can write historical fiction, and if you don't have a way to show people how it connects to them now, then they'll read it, and you may get, some flowery words in there, and it might sound good, but it's not gonna resonate with them. They're not gonna remember it
So true.
unless you can show them how it applies to their life. And so, I mean, so first of all, you have to have that resonate with readers. You have to be able to have them find that connection where they can it's hard, because sometimes it's hard to really, see yourself in someone else's shoes, especially for someone back in 1692. That's a long time ago. So really, a lot of times when I write historical stuff, I'm focusing on, like, well, how is this experience similar to something we've experienced now? So that's part of it. But the other part was actually just me trying to stretch myself and trying to do something new. So I had beta read for another author, and it was another short novella, and it was a romance, and she had she had gotten, them from point A to point B, and they had fallen in love in this short amount of time, and I was like, "Actually, that worked," and the way she did it and stuff, and I was like, but then I was like, "But I wonder if I could do the reverse." wonder if I could start with someone with a
Mhm.
couple who was in love and where they're just completely torn apart.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I could one of the things that I really appreciated about your book is the feeling of attraction and, for want of a better word, like, eroticism that can still exist within a marriage. That you can be comfortable and settled within, a marital relationship, and then also at the same time, this is real. Like,
Yeah.
these people felt real, and they also felt like they were married people having a normal, in scare quotes,
Yeah.
relationship that then gets blown up by external forces. But I never doubted that these were people who were in love even as things started going wrong. And that's a very hard thing to do.
It was a good, because for me, I could feel it. And even as I was getting towards the end, I was like, because so I'm a pantser. So I knew that like I wanted to show, but the original intent was to show how, the disintegration of a marriage, like how they break apart. But as I got towards the end, I was just kind of like, oh, but can I get them back together somehow? Is there some way to get them back? And I was just like, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work like this. We'd have to go on for another 50,000 words, and I don't got time for that.
You might have to
They
do a
don't,
whole
they don't
novel.
have, they don't
That's
have
right.
time for that.
That's right. Yeah, you can be a novelist like me, and instead
Yeah.
you can, have them come back together. That's fine. But, but I really did like how these felt like real people in a marriage, and that they felt like I felt the connection to their modernity came
Yeah.
through. So it felt like this is a man and a woman who could be here today feeling this kind of attraction, but also these kind of problems. One of the other things that really got me, and this is, I don't think, a spoiler because you put it in your content warnings, but you talk about pregnancy loss in this
Yeah.
book, and I have to say you handled it incredibly sensitively. It didn't feel exploitative at all, or like it was just being dropped in like a, hey, issue of the week kind of thing. It was very central to what was going on. And it's also something that people don't talk a lot about, even though it is so universal. And I thought your treatment was, as I said, very sensitive, but also it allowed a level of connection, as this female reader reading
Mhm.
about another woman, 300 plus years ago, to feel that feeling of universality. How did you approach writing about a very sensitive topic like this?
That's where it really comes in handy being a historical fiction writer.
Mhm.
There's a lot of research that goes in. So, like, I've had a miscarriage before, and, like, we shouldn't compare, but, like, luckily, it wasn't is nothing like the experiences that Caroline goes through. It was a
Yeah.
very early miscarriage, like, found out I was pregnant, and then it was, like, a week later, like, I miscarried, so it was
Hmm.
like, almost didn't get to really even almost accept that it was, like, that we'd gotten to that point. So, it was very early. It wasn't, really as traumatic to go through, at least for me, it wasn't. I know some people that it still could be. So, I had to really talk to a lot of people. I had to listen to a lot of interviews of people who had gone through not only just one, but, like, subsequent one, multiple miscarriages and those experiences and how the compounding effect of it. It's I mean, I realized too that, like, only fairly recently, I mean, you know how women's health is, and they they've just it's maddening sometimes how
Yeah.
slow we are to uptick, like, how all the research that we need and all the different ways that we should change things so that women can get the care that they need. But
Mm.
they fairly recently recognized that, like, yeah, you can get PTSD from a miscarriage. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, of course you can," like,
Yeah.
this is not something that you're expecting, and a lot of times when it happens, the way it's treated is it's very abrupt, and we get down to the point, and we sweep up the mess, and then we just move on, and we don't talk about it.
Yep.
And then it's like, "Well, wait, did I go through this or did I not?" Like,
Mhm.
and it's in all the hormones that go with it and all the emotional attachment, it just all gets ignored. So, like, that can really punch into people and really mess people up.
Yeah. When she's dealing with the other children of the community that are coming into her home, and she's carrying at that time, I all I could think was like, how does she do it? Like, how is she able to manage her emotions to deal with what she feels like it's a ticking time bomb
Yeah.
inside of herself, and at the same time provide, some maternal support to children that aren't her own and that she's not sure that she will ever be a mother. It was very delicately handled. I felt like I could feel the tension within herself.
Yeah.
So, like, the times when she was maybe a little curt or maybe a little abrupt with the children, but at the same time, you could tell, like, I know I shouldn't do this. It felt very real and very, as I said before, like, very modern.
Yeah, and that's why I have to think of all my friends, who've gone through, fertility issues and stuff, and for them opening up to me about it, especially, like, when I was carrying or they've taken care of my kids while they've been going through these issues and, like, being able to sit and talk to them as lived experiences, and over the years, I should say, not just while I was researching this, but, like, over the years of my life and that I've known them and that they were willing to open up and talk about that and just be so open.
Yeah. It was beautifully handled. So, I just wanted to let you know as a reader to an author, you know?
Thank you, yeah, and that was a big thing too, though, like, when I set out for beta readers for this, I was just like, I wanna make sure that I made sure a few of them had gone through the experience, and it was like but, not too recently because I was like, "I don't wanna scar you, I don't wanna throw you back into this." But
Right.
I tell me, "Is this okay? Like, does this feel?" Because I wanna honor this, I don't wanna use it as a gimmick, and they were all like, "This is wonderful."
Yeah. It was very nicely done. So, for a really hard topic, it was very
Yeah.
nicely done. So talk us through your writing routine if you have one. Like, how do you carve out writing time? You said you have 4 kids. How do you
Yeah.
find time to
And a
do all of
husband,
this?
so
And a
basically 5
husband.
kids, right?
Basically
Yes.
5, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, so I mean, it's an constantly evolving thing, but I used to when they were younger, I used to write at night because during the day, I mean, they are like, "When the baby naps, you nap." It's like, I don't have time to nap, but also I don't have brain space to write. And the only time really was when at night, and that's usually when my brain is more active anyways, and it's ready to do stuff. But as they've, gotten older, well, my oldest is still awake right now, and so, like, he's doing stuff, if he needs something I mean, right now, my husband's gonna take care of it, but normally, like, he's up, so if there's something that he wants a bid for connection, or we wanna do something together, like, I need to be available for that. And so, luckily, my youngest, she started school, like, full day school, kindergarten this school year. So, I was like, "Ah, I get this free time now." I don't have free time. I don't really actually have free time, but I have to really guard it, but I get a good solid 3 to 4 hours each day while they're at school, and it's like, that's my writing time, and
Right.
it's not every day, but I can usually get 3 out of the 5 days. A good week, I get all 5, and okay, sometimes I average 4, and some days it's really I only get 1 hour because they've got something going on at the school or I need to go pick up this for somebody else, or I need, like, this needs to get fixed at the house or things like that. And a lot of times too, because I'm married to a military spouse. I am a military spouse. I'm married to a military member and he's active duty. So sometimes he's not here. And so I'm solo parenting and I have to do extra stuff around the house and extra things with the kids and things like that.
And as an indie author, that's not only just your little slivers of time to write, but that's also you have a newsletter.
Yeah.
You've gotta
Mhm.
do marketing, like,
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
infrastructure around your writing, you've gotta fit
Yes,
in there as
which
well.
was a huge adjustment because before I decided to indie publish this, I was like, "Well, this is my writing time, and it's enough. I can do this." And even
Uh-huh.
it was enough to, like, get a query package together, and then, "Oh, yeah, I have time to query agents," and everything like that. And then when this got here and I switched over to publishing it, and then it was like, "Crap, now I have this 4-hour block, but I gotta spend all 4 of these hours formatting this book." was like, "I just spent a whole
Ugh.
day just formatting." And then it was like, or now I have to spend all day marketing. Like, who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. They wanna sit and they wanna write.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it cuts back into the writing time. So I'm still juggling it, trying to figure out where we can go. I figured out too with the family that like so December is like kind of my month off from drafting. I'm not actively writing. I've got edits I'm doing and I'm doing other administrative stuff, but I'm not that part of my brain's not being controlled by the narrative.
Can you talk us a little bit about what the indie publishing process has been like for you so far? Like, where did you learn how to start? Like, how did you do
Yeah,
this?
so when I was reaching out to writers or trying to find a writing community, a lot of people I was running into were actually indie authors, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of. They are so welcoming and they are so helpful, and they're so willing to read your work and give you feedback and stuff, and it's sometimes it's not the best feedback, but, you gotta go through some frogs to get some good ones, and I've got some really good people now, but they're just really good, and they're really, really good about sharing information. So, like, I could go to just about anybody and ask them a question. It's like, "Hey, what does this mean? Like, what is this?" So when you'd asked me about a media press kit, I went immediately to the group. I was like, "What is this?" And they're like and one of them chimed in, they're like, "I know the answer to this. This, and this is what you need," and everything like that. I was like, "Oh, great crap. I don't have that, so I'll figure this out now." Yeah, so, like, I knew because I had all of those people, that group, that I had started to make connections with, I knew where to go to find an editor. I did my own cover, so I knew where to go find the images and everything that I needed and how to figure out the typography and the ebook versus the hardback paper wrap and versus the audio cover and like the different dimensions you need and all that stuff. And what else is the ISBNs and they're like, well, if you do it this way, you get this, but if you do it this way, you get that, and they gave me all the pros and cons of everything.
How did you find these people, like, in the beginning?
I don't know. Like you know how
Very
you
organic.
Yeah, I mean this is like 4 years of me just reaching out and reaching out and reaching out and just trying to connect and something sticks. Okay, let's stick here and now okay, let's branch off from there and where else can we reach out? Where else can we reach out? I've been to a couple of writing conferences, which has helped. I've gone to a couple of writing retreats, which has also helped because there's lots of people there that you get the one-on-one time and you get to do the networking and a lot of most of the networking though is really just been finding other writers that to create a community.
Yeah, most of us are really nice, so
Yeah,
Most of us.
most of us. We've met a
you
couple.
can usually tell who's not pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. You mentioned your audiobook. I listened to a sample of it. It's
Yeah.
great. How did you find your narrator, and how did the whole process of turning it into an audiobook, like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that the indie authors, they were like, "Oh, it's not worth it to do an audio on a novella," like, that was their experience, and they were like, "It's not you're not gonna really make your money back on that," and because 'cause they're very much about, like, that bottom line of, like, "This is how we make our money." Because a lot of these people, this is their livelihood, and that's their full-time job, and that's how they make their money. So, like, I was getting feedback like that, so a lot of the audio, I had to kind of, like, be a maverick myself and, like, just figure it out on my own because they didn't have a lot of input on it. So I went through ACX has a program that they have narrators on there, and because of the audio standards that ACX demands from their narrators, it just kinda made the most sense to go through there,
Mhm.
and they have some people vetted, and first you have to claim your book, that, like, "This is my book, I'm the author, I have the rights to this," and then you can put it up for audition on ACX, and you can reach out individually to narrators and say, "Hey, I have an audition open. I would like you to do this." And you put together like a script for them. So like I think I had them read 3 different scenes. I had them read like a part of the opening, where it's just a narrative part, and because I wanted to see the narrative voice. And then I had a scene where I had them reading where it's Caroline and her husband John, and they're talking to Martha carrier and her husband, and so, like, there's 4 different characters, and they're all talking the dialogue, and so I wanted to get the different dialogue in there, and then I actually had the scene one of the scenes of one of the miscarriages because I was like, "Okay, this is very prevalent in the book, and I need you to be able to read this, and I need to be able to hear how it's gonna sound, because
Mhm.
this is very important." And so you do the audition through them, and I had a good amount. I mean, there was over 20 people that auditioned, and so I had to listen to each one, and there's a few of them who said, "Hey, this sounds good," and you reach out and, talk about particulars and, like, "This is, like, the time frame I'm looking at, and this is the rate I'm looking at paying," because I was paying per finished hour. So I
Mhm.
paid outright
Yeah.
for my audio rights.
Mhm.
ACX has a deal where you can do a royalty share where you don't really have to pay hardly anything upfront. I didn't do it, so I don't know
Mhm.
exactly, but it's
Yeah.
it's more of a
Interesting.
effective thing, but you have to, agree to keep your audio exclusive to them
Mhm.
for 7 years.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I was like and I don't like doing that. I
Yeah.
like having the rights
That's a
myself.
really long time.
That's a
It is,
Yeah.
very
yeah,
long
but as
contract.
they're there, the
Yeah.
royalties from the book go to you half go to you and half go to the narrator, and
Mhm.
so it could
Yeah.
be a good setup for them, could be a good deal,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some narrators only do royalty shares, some only do per finished hour, because that's how you pay for per finished hour, you don't pay by word count, which, you have to switch back and
Yeah.
forth, all these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, after I got somebody, they have their own contract that you can use. So we got the contract signed, and she would send me snippets for, like, here's this chapter. I would listen to it, review it, like, that sounds good. Yeah, like, this is wrong. Can you change this? Yes, and then we go back and forth. And then she would get it all uploaded, and she got it all uploaded to the site. I paid her, and then ACX had to go through their quality control, to make sure that the
Yeah.
audio was good enough.
It sounds wonderful. What surprised you about indie publishing? And correct me if I'm wrong, did you start out thinking, like, "I wanna be trad pub," and weren't thinking about indie publishing?
Yeah,
And
that's what I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, it's trad pub or bust." Like,
Mhm, mhm.
I'm not doing anything, and people were always like, "Well," because I would write something, and then they're like, "Well, are you gonna publish it?" And I was like, "Well, it doesn't work like that, like, I gotta get an agent, and then they gotta sell it to an editor, and a publishing house has gotta pick it up," and things like that, and they're like, "Well, you can just go publish it yourself," and I was like, "No, I can't," not really. Like, he's like, "You don't know me well enough. Like, if I'm gonna do something like that, I'm gonna do it right. So, like, I'm gonna have to put in all of this money, this effort, and, like, this isn't just like a throw it up on Amazon and we're done for the day thing."
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though, like, I knew going in that it was gonna be a lot of work, and it was still surprising at how much work it was still, especially the marketing. Like, I know going in, it was like, yeah, it's all falling back on me. Me getting the word out, me telling people about this, and me creating the graphics and all this stuff like that. And so I'm still getting used to that. I don't know that I'll ever get used to that, how much that was. And then the other surprising thing was just how long actually it took. A lot of people, they talk about how fast indie publishing is. And yeah, it can be, but I mean, I started researching this back in February. I wrote it, like March through May, but then I still had to, like, get beta readers read it. I had to edit it. I had to get it to an editor to do like copy and line edits. And then I had to go back and proofread it. I had to format it. I had to do so, like, they just was like, "Well, now we had to add another month, and we're adding another month, and we're adding another month," and I was like, "I don't know if I'm even gonna get this done in time because there's just so much to do." And then, like, later, trying to figure out the timeline for audio to get that, and that just kept getting longer and longer, and getting it published with Ingram Spark, that took longer than I thought it would, and
Mhm.
getting it out to available to libraries, that took longer than I thought it would, and it was
What did
just
what did
very
what did the library
slow.
stuff look like? I mean, I'm very curious how you've like,
I
how
mean,
do
it
you
was
do
very
that?
simple. It was very simple. Drafted Digital is who you go through to get, like, the ebook distributed to libraries. They distribute to, like, Overdrive and all of Hoopla and
Mhm,
all of those
mhm.
places, and then the physical copies go through Ingram Spark, and the audio copies go through It's, Voices in Audio is who does it, but it's very simple to get things uploaded, well, except for Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark is a headache and a half, but they it's very simple to get things uploaded. They're like, "Well, now we have to process it, and we have to do our our checks and things like that," and they're like, "And but then as soon as we say it's okay, it's still gonna take, the distributor or the retailer or whoever it is, it may take them a month or 2 before they even list it on their website," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, really?"
Oh
I
my
was like, "This is
Nothing's
why
gosh.
it
ever
takes
easy.
this is why it
Yeah.
takes so long in trad publishing because nobody can get their game together."
Yeah. Oh my god. Are there any mistakes you would admit to that you could warn people about? Other
Yes.
potential indie authors? Dish.
Okay, so there is a I kind of talk Ingram Spark is and I got warned about this, how much of a headache it is to work with them, but they are essential. Like there's not really any way around them. I mean, there kind of is, but it is the pros outweigh the cons still for the most part. And but there was this a little box that I didn't realize that I had checked that I needed to uncheck, and it changed it so that the so, like, when you read however we read the book, we read from left
To
to
right.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you leave the box checked, then it changes it so the book is reading from right to left, and so
What?
then I know, right? And so then when I went in to go put in my cover, the wrap that I had for the cover, they're like, "This cover isn't lining up with your text, like, it's backwards." I'm like, "It's not backwards. I double This is exactly how it is. I used your template, I used everything, and then but they couldn't tell me what was wrong with it. So, like, I had to comb through they were just kept telling me, "It's backward, like, it's not there's something wrong." But there was no actual troubleshooting, so I
Dang.
had to go troubleshoot it myself. And then once I figured out what was wrong, I had to email them and say, "Hey, this is what's wrong. Can you please fix it?" And that was about a month of me emailing back and forth, just telling them what's wrong and can you please fix it? And I think I talked to
My
like 3
god.
different people where they're like, this needs to go up to this person. And okay, now they're going to review this. And like, oh, yes, what you said is right. Let's go send this to someone else now. And oh, yeah,
Oh
what
my
you said is
gosh.
right.
Oh my god.
And they was like, and then eventually they're like, okay, we sent it in to get fixed. It should be there in the next 30 days. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
So just
Gosh.
one checkbox
Just
cost you
one
about a month.
checkbox. Yeah, it was about
Ugh.
2 months, yeah,
Wow, 2 months. Wow.
almost 2 months, yeah.
So uncheck those check boxes, people. So
Yeah, just double check,
oh my god.
triple check everything.
Triple check all the checks. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. We started talking a little bit about marketing and you mentioned, you've got your website, you have a newsletter that
yeah.
you're pushing out more content through. How are you finding readers for your book? Like how are you growing things, or are you doing it organically? Are you buying lists? Like how are you kind of working with it?
I'm trying to do it as organically as I can. I don't know how it's going. I'm still getting sales, I know that,
Uh-huh.
and as long as the sales keep coming in, I'm like, "Okay, whatever's working is working." Amazon will push, um 'cause that's where most of the sales are coming through is through Amazon, and for the first 90 days that your book is listed on Amazon, they'll kind of organically push your content, and as long as you've got, the things right, it will pull in people on its own, and then after
Uh-huh.
the 90 days, they kind of scale back their like, "We're gonna focus on the next big thing now." If you haven't taken off by then,
Mhm.
then they're not really gonna help you anymore after that.
Mhm.
They want you to
Mhm.
start paying for ads and things like that, which I haven't done any ads yet at all. I have a few people, they're like, "Well, you should try
Yeah.
it ads coming up. Just try it for a month and see just to get the experience so you know how to do it." So I'm kind of mentally preparing to start ads sometime in the new year, see how it
Are
goes.
those ads on Amazon or are they
On
on other
Amazon, Facebook.
platforms?
I'm probably gonna try Facebook first because Facebook, I guess, has a thing where it can tell you demographics on, like, who clicks on the ad and who looks at it
Mhm.
and things like that. So it can tell you, this is your audience, and which would be really good to learn. It just gives you a more
Yeah.
narrow scope of, like, yeah, this is who you're actually attracting.
Yeah, as a podcast, we get details through Spotify, and it's always
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see where people are, how old they are, what gender identity they have, like,
Yeah.
and, it is how many, how long they listen for. It's it's very interesting, basically, if you're a middle-aged lady in America, you might be listening to us, but, they're not all me, but I we go get so I especially get so down on Facebook, but I do know that they offer that kind of granularity,
Yeah.
which is incredibly useful for marketing. So, Facebook, I don't love you, but I can see how
Right?
it'd be very useful.
I know all these platforms that I don't love, are now I'm like, "Ah, actually, I can
Tell
see
me about
why
it.
you're still around because you are very useful."
Yeah. You also mentioned that you had ARC readers, I think. And
Yeah.
how did you build your ARC team?
Not very well. So they I got about 15 ARC readers, which, I mean, that sounds great now, but, like, learning people try and get, like, hundreds of ARC readers, and
Wow.
yeah, so, like, the sheer number is just, "Oh, I don't know that I even talked to over 100 people," you know? But that was also mostly through Facebook. I mean, I reached out to my newsletter the subscribers first, and it's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is coming out, but if you want a free copy of this and
Mhm.
feel comfortable leaving a review, which you're not, I mean, it's not an exchange, like, it's not supposed to be an exchange like that, but,
Yeah.
like, it is, like,
Leave an honest review,
yeah, like,
right?
and
Yeah.
it was very much stressed, so, like, it needs to be an honest review, and I
Yeah.
explained to
Yeah.
the subscribers, like, "Look, it has to be honest because of this. If you're just going up there to throw, 'Oh, it was great,' that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me, it doesn't help readers, it doesn't you gotta leave an honest review." So
Yeah.
I pulled a few from the newsletter, but then, uh, the majority of them came actually through Facebook groups of ARC readers where I just posted about it and said, "Hey, this needs ARC readers to blurb. I got a cover up there." Actually, I didn't have the cover done in time for that. And so that was something that I'll hopefully fix for the next one. It helps to have a cover ready, have a blurb ready,
Mhm.
have a pitch ready, like all of that so that people can see almost like if you're pitching, to buyers because
Mhm.
that's what you're
Mhm.
looking for. People who potentially would want to read this and buy it,
Mhm.
you're just giving it to them for free early.
Kind of looking forward, you've got another novella that's coming out in February.
Yeah.
Do you wanna talk a little bit about that? Can you give us a hint at all, or
It's a historical romance, so like I talked about, I just veered off a little bit to the side, and that one came about because there was some authors that I knew, and they were trying to do a multi-author project,
Mm.
and they invited me in. They said, "Hey, would you want to do this?" I looked at it, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I think that could fit with my schedule," and then I looked at what they wanted to do, and I was like, "Okay, is there a story here that I would want to tell?" Because I don't wanna just do a project to do a project. If I can't stick with a story, then it's no fun for anybody, and I almost did not make it through this one. I don't know that I will do
Sure.
another historical romance again.
And
Yeah,
can I
but
ask what period it's in? What takes
it's
place in?
Victorian,
Okay.
so this one was, mine is 1877, I think is what it was, and it's most of them are, like, UK based, Victorian, that type, but mine, they take off down to Barbados, and they get married, and he abandons her, and she's like, "No, sir." So she goes after him, and then
And
they fall in love and, all that because it's a romance, so and they live
yes.
happily ever after. This one is much more genre fiction
Mhm.
versus the literary fiction, which is what I would classify The Witch Hunter more. It leans more literary. So if you pick up Witch Hunter and then you go pick up the next one, which is a Bouquet of Blue Sailors, it's a different voice. It's very rom-com genre, like, it's just a different voice. It's still me, but I had to scale back on, like, I can't go on these tangents of these things. You're like, "We gotta get to the story." So,
And,
Yeah.
as an indie author, like, you get to do that, right?
yeah.
Whereas, trad pub authors are often encouraged, to kinda stick in their lane. So if you write police procedurals, that's you, that's your brand, that's what you're
That's your
writing.
brand for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, they
Yeah.
they kinda tell you the same thing with India, actually, too. You wanna stay generally in the same brand
Mhm.
because that's how you'll get the best growth from
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But they do, they're like, "But, if that's the story you wanna tell, then that's why you're indie publishing, like, you can
Yeah.
tell that story."
Yeah. And I think I saw that you were thinking about possibly going hybrid in the future. Is that still something that you're thinking about or
Yes, I mean,
yeah.
the a lot of people get into indie publishing and they're like, "No, this is it. This is it for me. I never wanna do anything else." And I got into indie publishing, I was like, "Oh, I 100% want a partner in this. I want someone to be on my team, on my side, because the buck stops with me with this." I was like, I don't want all that pressure."
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times I was like, "Man, I wish I had a collaborator with this, like someone who could help champion me through this and things like that." And so,
So are you querying agents? Are you thinking about getting back into it? Are you doing it now or are you
yeah, technically right now I still have a full out with an agent. She had like I've gotten no like everyone else has kind of responded or the ones that like the queries that they don't respond, and so like they're just not going to respond at this
Yeah.
point. And I might hear back from this agent maybe next year, because she's just
Yeah.
very slow moving through everything. For all intents and purposes, like I'm not in the trenches right now. Um, I have that project and I just put it on a shelf because the feedback I got from it, was like, we love this. It's wonderful writing. It's a story that really needs to be told, but I don't know how to sell it. And so I was like, okay, well then there's I don't know what to change, like the only thing to change is to change the market. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that the worst feedback? I mean, and it's not the agent's fault, but it's like, yeah, exactly. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do with that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
telling me my book is great and you just can't sell it. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
yikes. Yeah.
we were talking in the last episode about, your manuscript being an ugly baby and people are like, "No, your ugly baby is beautiful, but I just can't sell your ugly baby."
But I can't
Even though
take
you
your ugly baby to the party because nobody will
That's
want
right,
it. So
because it's so ugly. I think it's beautiful, but everyone else thinks it's ugly. And that's hard. I've had, any number of rejections on full where it's like, "I love your writing. You're fantastic. This is a great story. I don't know how to sell it." And
yeah.
it's like, "Well, okay, am I wrong? Is the book wrong?" But I think you've got it right. The market is wrong, you know?
Yeah, so it's on a
Yeah.
shelf right now. I've got like I was able to snag a mentor this last year and she's been looking at it and she has some suggestions. I haven't picked it back up yet though to like really look at it and see if I agree with her suggestions or not, but the idea is that we hopefully will look at it in the new year and I will decide, okay, do I really want to just keep it as is or do I think that these suggestions will make it more marketable or things like that? And
Mhm.
then but if not, I have another novel that I'm working on that I plan to finish writing next year, hopefully in time to get it out to betas and then edit and then get to out to agents and back into the trenches. We'll see. I'm about 20,000 words into it and it's probably I mean, it's gonna be around 90,000 words, so
Yeah. The trenches are awful.
they're necessary. I got into a group, we call it our Query Trench Besties, and it's a bunch of authors that we were all in the trenches together. One of them, she, like, put out a call on social media, she's like, "Hey, is anybody else in the trenches?" And they have been a godsend. They like, I know that I'm gonna go back into the trenches, but I'm not dreading it the way I was before. I've got these ladies on my back. They're gonna get me through this, so it'll be good as soon as I get back in there, but I just gotta finish writing this thing first, so
You have to have the support system for sure.
yeah.
And also the finished work.
And yeah, it's like,
Well, yes,
you
That
also have
that
to have the
helps too.
product.
I guess.
Yes, yes. What? Just some miscellaneous, like, hodgepodgery type questions. What do you like to do when you're not writing or, wrangling your kids?
I like to sleep. No, I mean, usually I'm a really outdoorsy person, so I really like walking, hiking, and stuff like that. I like being active. Um, I really like to travel, which really helps with sometimes the traveling turns into research trips. I'm like, I promise I'm not working. I'm just actually really interested in this. And sometimes later picks up and gets put in a story. But I do really like to travel. I love experiencing new cultures. I love trying new foods and just seeing new places and learning the history of it. Like, oh, we'll go places. And I just start asking questions. And my husband will be like, okay, I'm going to go take the kids over here and you can have a moment with the docent or whatever it is over here.
Do you have any writing rituals? It's something we talked about with our first guest, Amber Hamilton, about rituals that she has or ways of getting in the zone. Do you have any ways of getting
I
there?
a little bit. So because I'm so crunched for time, I've kind of had to like Pavlov myself and they create like a playlist for each piece of work, that it usually just has like the general vibes of the story that I'm trying to write. Sometimes it has some songs in there that I feel like are very character specific or something like that. But usually it's just a general vibes. I'll play it in the morning, before like as the as we're getting ready to go to school, so like I'm
Mhm,
getting in the zone and then getting
mhm.
everything. And so then when I sit down, usually the playlist is done and then I'm already thinking about it, and if I'm really on top of it, I will read, like, what I've written before. I'll read it, like, the night before so that, like, I can start thinking about what's coming next. What would they possibly do? Where are things going? And I let my sleeping brain figure it out as
Mm,
so that there's all the ideas. You do so much problem solving while you're sleeping, and
true.
it
Very
really
true.
helps.
Now, I'm gonna try that tonight. I tried Amber's hint of reading a poem before she
Oh, yeah?
started writing. So, yeah,
I haven't
and that
tried
that was
that
great.
yet, but I was interested in seeing if that helped
It
me or not.
I thought that was quite interesting. I'm gonna try yours. I'm gonna try reading what I last wrote before I go to bed tonight, so that when I start writing tomorrow morning, I'm already kind of maybe tricked my
Yeah,
sleep brain
but
into it, so
you have to think about specifically, like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Or if there's
Mhm,
like because I pants, so a lot of times I'm like, well, what's and I can kind of feel, like where we are in the story and like, okay, this
mhm,
feels like a midpoint, but what's gonna happen? Like, and sometimes you got to figure out plot holes and things like, okay, well, how am I gonna get them from A to B? And so I just let that ruminate overnight. And then a lot of times when I sit down the next morning and I get introduced back to the characters, I'm like, oh, of course, this is what would happen. So
okay.
it works.
I have taken a note. I'm going to try it. I'll let you know if it works. What are you reading right now?
I am reading a lot of unpublished work. I am catching up on like beta swaps. And all these people who've been reading for me, I was like, yes, I can read for you. I was like, but it'll have to be in December, and they're like, that's fine. So I've got like 3 manuscripts right now that I got to get through before the end of the year, which will be fine. I read really fast, but it's I'm like, oh, this is what I'm reading. But generally, if I'm working on something, I can't read a lot, or I definitely can't read in the same genre. I have to read something else.
Mm.
Interesting. So, where can listeners find you online and stay updated on what you're doing, your work, your next books? What's the easiest way to find you?
I am on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I am on Threads, but I have a website, which is just jessicalunt.com. The most up-to-date stuff is in my newsletter, which you can sign up for on the website. But I try to post on Instagram and Facebook and Threads kind of updates as they come along. But the newsletter subscribers, I'm like, oh, this is what's coming up this next month. This is what I have planned. So they kind of get a little extra, I guess, or like ahead of time.
We'll get those links in the, show notes too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
my handle is just on Facebook. It's just author Jessica Lunt, but on Instagram, it's a J Lunt too, which is what used to sign up like for a book. I just signed J Lunt for my signature.
And where can they get the Witch Hunter's Wife?
It's available almost everywhere. It is in Kindle Unlimited, so the ebook is only available through Amazon. But they did change their policies, and I was super happy about that because that was one of those things I was going back and forth on, like, "Oh, do I really wanna put it in Kindle Unlimited?" Because I really want it in libraries. So it is available to request through your library. The hardcover is available just about anywhere you buy a book. It can get distributed, and then the audio is also wide. You can find it just about anywhere you get your audiobooks.
Fantastic. And do you have any final words of wisdom for aspiring indie authors?
Indie authors,
Yeah.
just know that we're all making it up and
It's just a free for all.
it's a free for all. Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to jump in and you're willing to pivot and go with the flow and some months something works and next month something else works. And so you just kind of got to go with it. And if you're ready to move quickly like that, then you could I have friends and they make, 6 figures doing this. It's insane.
Why am I a lawyer?
Yeah,
Why am I going trad pub?
think that too. I'm like, "Wow," but the the stuff they're doing is incredible, just how much they're doing, but if you're trying to do this, reach out, reach out, reach out, because someone's always there, and they're always gonna be willing to share what they've learned.
Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really fun
Yeah,
and so
this has been a
informative.
treat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
thank you.
you. Thank you so much. And, next week, Kirk and I are going to come up with something to talk about. My brain has been so taxed
Yeah.
that I have
No
not
idea.
come up with any topics, but assume that I will come up with something brilliant and pull it from the ether somewhere. But until then, you can find us on all the socials. We are Bad Lit Friends everywhere, on horrible Instagram, horrible Threads, slightly less horrible Blue Sky. We are on YouTube, if I remember to update the link, which maybe I've done. But until next time, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, Jessica, and we will see you then.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks again, Jessica. Bye.
Bye.